welcome to NAPOD, where we provide NA speaker meetings and workshops in a podcast. We are an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us to be self-supporting by visiting napod.xyz, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 in the virtual basket. If you're also in AA or have friends that are, please tell them about our other podcast, Sobercast. Sobercast features AA speakers and workshops in the same format as NAPOD. We upload a new speaker every day, and it's easy to subscribe by searching for Sobercast, that's 2 words, on any podcast player app, or go to Sobercast.com. Enjoy the podcast, and thanks for listening.
Again, I'm Adam, I'm an addict. My clean date's 1508. So I think if today's the 12th. I'm rolled 777s today. It's 77 months and 7 days. So maybe it's my lucky day. Terrence. I've known Terrence for quite a while. I didn't realize Kyle was your sponsor, huh? It was Kyle. Yeah, I didn't realize Kyle was a sponsor, but I've seen him around all over the place too, And one of the things that attracted me to him is that I seen him all over the place, And basically, what that says to me when I see someone all over the place, whether it's in Ohio, Pittsburgh, West Virginia, wherever we go, is that they chase the recovery like they chase the drug of choice, And that's what worked for me, Like I said, I have 77 months and seven days. My story is probably like most of your guys' story. I feel like we all pretty much have the same story. It's just the details are a little different. It's getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. We live to use and use to live. It did many people great harm, but most of all we harmed ourselves. All that stuff, all the literature stuff, man, it sticks out. But before I go into my story and my message is that I want to share the Narcotics Anonymous message because that's a message that never falls short. And the message is that an addict, any addict, white addict, black addict, male addict, female addict, addict with AIDS, addict with cancer, addicts that are dying, addicts that are living, addicts that are struggling to get here, right? Any addict. If you're here today, you're any addict, right? You can stop using drugs. You can stop using drugs. If you haven't stopped yet, you can stop using drugs, right? You can lose the desire to use, and that's the hit for me. I never thought I'd want to get a day clean, let alone get a day clean, right? I live to use and use to live. That's what I like to do. I love using drugs. I loved everything about it. I love getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. I love going to cop more than I like using, right? I like robbing people. I liked everything about it except going to jail, right? And I really, one of the things that really hit me in my story is like I said, it's pretty much like any story, right? And I'm going to go into the basic text because it speaks it far better than I could ever say it, right? It tells my story. This book tells my story far better than I could ever tell it, right? It's more eloquent. It's the shared experience, right? It says we were constantly searching for that answer, that person, place, or thing that would make everything all right. We lacked the ability to cope with daily living. As our addiction caught up with us, many of us found ourselves in and out of institutions, right? And that was my story. I was in and out of institutions, right? And if you ain't been in and out of institutions, keep coming because someone will share your story too. I don't want to allow you to disqualify yourself because you don't identify with what I'm saying because I'm not the be-all and end-all of Narcotics Anonymous, right? I'm just here to share my story, right? And it talks about also a little further in this chapter, it says, the only alternatives to a life in recovery are jails, institutions, dereliction, and death, right? And we missed that part in our readings, the dereliction part, but I think that's the part that most people would really identify with if we read that part, right? Because dereliction is willful neglect of our responsibilities, right? We willfully neglect those things. I know I got to do that shit, but I don't care I got to do it. Fuck it, I'll do it later, right? Procrastination, right? All that stuff. And I procrastinate to the point where I'm derelict in my responsibility, and because I'm derelict in my responsibility, I degrade myself in my own eyes, and I feel like I ain't worth it. I feel like I'm hopeless. I feel like there's not a shot. Why even try, right? But I had to keep coming back, because the message is hope, right? The message is hope is that any addict, right, can stop using drugs. Any addict. can lose the desire to use, and any addict can find a new way to live, right? And that's where I'm at right now. It's like I'm trying to find a new way to live. Like, this is the only life I got, right? I never had 77 months and 7 days clean before. I'm learning on the fly, right? But I got a sponsor who has had 77 months and 7 days clean before who I can call. I got men in my way. I got men with less time than me who have experiences in different areas that I don't have experience with, who teach me other things in my life, right? Because that's what it's about. It's a we program, right? So, the dereliction piece is the piece that really got me. And this is what I didn't understand. Like, I never really, like, it talks about in our first step, right? For some of us, the unmanageability was the only thing that was apparent, right? I wasn't that dude. Like, I didn't realize that my life was unmanageable. I was way too self-centered to admit that I was the problem, right? That my life was unmanageable. I figured I had it. I had it under control. They just caught me slipping when I went to jail, right? They just caught me slipping that day. Them damn Xannies, right? If I wasn't taking them things, then I wouldn't have went to jail. Every time, and I didn't go to jail every time I got high, but every time I was in jail, I was high, right? So, these experiences indicated that there was something wrong with our lives, right? That's the next sentence. We wanted an easy way out. Some of us thought of suicide. That's my story. Our attempts were usually feeble and only helped to contribute to our feeling of worthlessness. We were trapped in the illusion of what if only, and just one more time. Just one more time, right? Like, my disease doesn't understand just one more time, right? One's too many and 1,000's never enough, right? Like, I got a disease that tells me I don't have a disease, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with me today, right? Like, I'll be trapped. I entertain myself with obsession and compulsion, right? And complete and total self-centeredness. And that's what my disease is made of. It's a 3-part disease, right? There's a physical part, a mental part, and a spiritual part. And if you work out a step working guide, it talks about an emotional part. And that's debatable whether it's mental or not, or if it's emotional, or if it's separate, or if it's all together, but whatever, right? They want to add parts, whatever. They can add parts. There's probably more parts that aren't listed, But so I know that like the physical compulsion is once I pick up, I can't stop, right? And once I do stop, I can't stop thinking about not wanting to stop. Because my disease tells me I don't have a disease, and I feel like I'm the one that wants to use, right? I didn't realize that the first step was telling me that I was powerless over that stuff. That wasn't me, right? That was the spirit, and this is my experience, this is my belief, this is the way I look at recovery. So maybe you can, get with it, maybe you can't. And like I said, if you can't, keep coming. Because someone will share what you can get with, right? And that's how our shared experience, our diversity is our strength, right? All these different things they talk about. That's the power of the program. If everyone was like me, some of us would be dead, right? I'll be honest. Because there's people who I do not agree with in Narcotics Anonymous who have a completely different perspective, right? And the reality of it is the anonymity is the spiritual foundation, right? It's the spiritual foundation. And we need to always remember to practice principles before personalities. And the reality of it is those people who I don't agree with are going to be able to help people I'll never be able to help. And they don't agree with me, and I'll be able to help people that they'll never be able to help, right? And that's just how it works. So diversity is a strength around here, right? So I need to remember that stuff. I need to remember that stuff when I'm starting to get a resentment because someone's sharing the same shit that they keep sharing that makes no sense, right? Because that happens. Sometimes I just don't see where they're coming from. But if it helps them get a day clean, it helps them get a day clean. That's what we're all trying to do. We're just trying to get a day clean here, right? And they say, staying clean must come first, right? And if staying clean must come first, then I had to ask myself, well, then what must come second? Right? Because staying clean must come first, so what must come second then, right? And I feel like for me, it's like finding a new way to live, right? I need to find a new way to live. And finding a new way to live means I need to try new things, right? I need to step out of my comfort zone, and I need to do some things that I don't believe myself capable of doing, right? And just because I don't believe myself capable of doing it doesn't mean that I'm not able to do it, right? Because my disease will tell me that it does, because it told me that I could never get clean. It could tell me that I would never be anything. I was worthless. I was hopeless. It wasn't even worth trying, right? Why even bother, right? Because I'm never going to live to be past 21 anyway. That's what my disease told me, right? And because I didn't believe I would live to be past 21, I lived like I wouldn't live to be past 21. And because I lived like I wouldn't live to be past 21, I found myself in and out of jail, in and out of institutions, and spiritually hopeless, right? Death. Right? Like a separation from life, right? That's what death is. It's a separation from life, right? And I was separated from life, like any hope of any growth, right? And recovery is growth. It's an active change in my ideas and attitudes, right? I need to be actively changing my ideas and attitudes. If my ideas and attitudes aren't actively changing, then I need to take a look at where my recovery's at, right? If I have the same ideas that I had when I walked in the door, then I might be in trouble, right? Because it's about growth. Right? And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to grow around here. And a lot of my perspectives have changed because I was like real militant when I got here, right? And I know today, looking back, that the reason why I was like militant, like everything was either black or it was white. It was right and or it was wrong. And if you weren't doing what I was doing, then you were wrong, right? And that's how some of us are. And I know now, looking back, that the reason why I was like that was because I was afraid, right? This program gave me hope. It saved my life, right? If you don't hear anything else I say today, hear that this program saved my life, right? And it can save your life too if you give it a shot. If you keep coming back a day at a time. Like you live a day at a time. If a day at a time is too long, live an hour at a time. Live 5 minutes at a time. Call my sponsor, right? Because I got a disease that makes me believe that I'm it. Right? But if the first step says I'm powerless over my addiction, right, then obviously I'm powerless over it. If I'm powerless over it, it can't be me. Right? That's not who I was. I wasn't the dude, like, my heart, like, I remember, like, being in my kitchen, right, after coming home and doing 30 months in the penitentiary, having relapsed, right, and caught a DUI, and my mom was waking up for work. I'm not even from Pittsburgh, if you can't tell by the accent. I'm from Philadelphia originally, right? And, like, I remember I was supposed to go out doing the stuff that we do that gets us where we go. And, like, I remember I heard my mom, like, the police, here's what happened. I was driving under the influence of what, it doesn't matter what you use, what or how much you use, who your connections were, so it doesn't matter, right? But I was driving under the influence. It was apparent that I was whacked, right? I had one headlight thinking like it was Philly, right? Like I wasn't going to get pulled over. And I got pulled over. And I was on state parole. I was out past curfew. And this is like God working in my life before I ever knew like how, like anything about recovery, really, because I didn't know anything about recovery when I got here. I got pulled over, and the cop said, "You got a choice. We're either going to give you a blood test. You can come to the hospital and take a blood test, right? And we'll take you home, or you can go to jail." Right? What do you think I did? I'm obviously whacked, right? And I was passing the breathalyzer. So they knew I was intoxicated, so they wanted me to take a blood test, right? So, of course, I went to the hospital and took the blood test, right? I'm going to take door number 2. And this was my higher power working in my life because the God of my understanding knew that I had just done 30 months in the penitentiary, right? If I read the old literature, right, because that's what I'm reading right now, I have the second edition basic text. If you don't like it, I'm taking donations. I will take a fifth if you want to get it for me. That's the only one I have. I gave my fifths out, right? But it says, most of us realize that in our addiction we are slowly committing suicide. With such cunning enemy as life are narcotics and sedation, that we have lost the power to do anything about it. Jail did not help us at all, right? That's what he used to say, right? And like the God of my understanding knew that like I had just done 30 months. Me going back to jail is not going to help my situation at all, right? Recovery is about growth. I needed a new perspective on my life, right? And he sent me home, right? I went and took the blood test, failed miserably, and they took me home, And I got home about the time my mom was waking up for work, and she woke up for work, and obviously the car wasn't there, right? I hear her waking up, and I'm fucking still hammer time. Excuse my language, I'm sorry. So I'm still wrecked. And I hear her waking up, so of course I just jump under the covers and act like I'm sleeping, right? And I hear her open the door, and she's like, "Adam." And I act like I'm sleeping, I'm snoring, and she says, "Adam, wake up." And I'm still just trying to curl up under the covers like she ain't gonna see me under there, And she's like, "Wake up!" And she starts getting mad. "Where's the car at?" And I looked up at her, and I had to tell her like I did it again. all that time in jail, the whole time I sat in there, I felt like, because she would call me and she'd be upset, and I'd be like, what are you worried about, Mom? Like, I'm the one that's in here. I'm the one that's doing this time. I'm the one that doesn't have food. I'm the one that can only, go eat when they tell me, right? I'm the only one that has to deal with this. I didn't realize that she did every day of that 30 months with me, right? A mother's only as happy as her saddest child, and I'm the only child. So how do you think she felt, right? Hopeless, scared, not knowing what I was going to do, right? And, when I told her, like, I did it again, like, I saw the life just drain out of her, when her shoulders shrunk, and she went to bed and just didn't come out for like a few days, What I know now is like that was the God of my understanding showing me that it wasn't just about me. Like I wasn't just hurting me, I was hurting all these other people in my life who I had no idea, but I was so self-centered I couldn't see it until it was right in front of my face, right? I couldn't see how I was hurting my mom. I was breaking my mother's heart. And my uncles and my cousins all looked down on me like I was a piece of trash and I was never going to be nothing. Because I felt like that, right? So obviously that was what I gave out. That's what I gave off. Because normal people have no idea what's going on. They don't understand, right? Makes no sense. Why would you just use drugs like that? Look at you, right? And like, I'm sure some of you remember that feeling, What if only, and just one more time? Remember that feeling? Like I remember standing in my kitchen and my mom screaming, where's my son at? And I'm standing right there. You know what I mean? Like I remember that. And she doesn't recognize this person because I'm a shell of my former self. Because I'm identified with my disease, right? I didn't realize that that's not who I was. I created this image of who I thought that you thought that I should be in order for me to be accepted. Because I was afraid to be myself. I didn't understand that I was the only me that this world has, right? That only I have what I have, right? And only Mario has what Mario has to give me, and Gwat and Dan and Terrence, right? We're all individuals, right? And we all have different values and different, gifts and talents and things, right? And that, like, if we share that, like, the world's a better place, you know what I mean? But, like, I feel like I need to be something because I got this, like, cue from society or whatever that I need to be something else, something other than what I naturally am, and basically what I was telling myself all that time that I wasn't worth it. There wasn't, what I mean? There was no reason to even bother. And like, I really believe like the whole step process, right? Like the first 3 steps, like we admitted we were powerless over our addiction. The first step's about me finding out what my addiction is, right? And it's the obsession, compulsion, and self-centeredness, right? And like it's a 3-part disease, so there should be, in my belief, because like the best I ever was in my recovery was when I was practicing a 3-part recovery program. I had a physical part to my program, I had a mental part to my program, and a spiritual part to my program. And every day I did something for my physical, something for my mental, and something for my spiritual, right? And I fed those parts of myself, right? And like, I've fallen off of that recently, but I'm trying to get back into it. So like now I'm like, I started working out 3 days ago. And I can barely bend my arm because my shit hurts. I work out, and that's how growth is, right? Like, usually there's growth. Like, we have to go through some pain in order to grow, right? And I believe, like, my higher power knows that, like, there's more in store for me, right? But he gives me like, the ability to make a decision on the things that I want to do, and the ability to make choices in my life, right? But he'll give me glimpses along the way of like what could be. And I believe that my higher power gives me glimpses because like if he showed me like the whole story, like he gave me the whole picture, I would never do it because I'd be overwhelmed, right? Because I'd be too afraid, especially when I found out the work that it would take in order to get where I'm trying to go in life, right? All the fears that I would have to conquer, right? And all the courage that I have to practice. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's perseverance in spite of its presence, right? It's like continue on no matter like how scared I feel, no matter how hopeless I feel. Like that's what courage is. So like he gave me a program to where when I feel powerless, that I can find a power greater than myself. That's the immediate second step. It says in the literature, the first step left a vacuum in our lives, right? It left a vacuum. You know what vacuums do? They suck. right? Everything, good, bad, or indifferent. It doesn't matter. It sucks. And I just don't want stuff to suck, right? So if I can practice a program, right, if I can find a power greater than me to restore some sanity to my life, right, then, maybe I can progress. But I need to find, what the power is. If the disease is obsession, compulsion, and self-centeredness, right? I need to find something to relieve the obsession, compulsion, and self-centeredness immediately, right? Immediately. Like right now. Because I remember going to rehab and saying in rehab, a craving only lasts for 7 minutes, right? And I remember coming home for rehab and a craving kicked, right? And the craving kicked on and I put the timer on the thing, right? 7 minutes, right? So I'm looking at the clock, 7 minutes. I got 7 minutes. I just kept looking at the clock, right? And I go upstairs and time stretches when you're craving, right? It's obsession. Remember obsession? Remember what it felt like to be obsessing? Like you can't stop thinking about it and you just want to do it, but you don't want to do it, but you can't stop thinking about it because you feel like you have to do it. That's compulsion. I feel compelled, like I have to, right? I have no choice. You do have a choice. It just feels like you're powerless until you find that power greater than yourself. But I didn't get that out of rehab. I didn't understand that I needed a power greater than myself. So I just put the clock on. That was the power greater than myself. Time, right? And time is a power greater than me. It's why we celebrate that stuff in here, right? We celebrate time because it is a power greater than me. But I need something more immediate when I'm going through the obsession, right? Because I need something now or I'm going to use, right? Or I'm going to use. If I don't get something right this second, right? I'm going to get high. I want to get high. But I don't want to get high. But I want to get high, right? I don't know if you remember that. And it'll make you crazy. And eventually I got high. Because I didn't understand that I needed to call someone. I didn't understand that sometimes looking for a solution is the solution. I didn't understand just sitting there eventually it'll pass. But I don't understand eventually because I've been living about now. I've been living just for this moment for the whole time I've been using it. I understand just for today when I got here. I understood just for this moment. Because I believed that I could just use just for today when I got here. You remember thinking like that? I'll just use today. Right? I'll just use today. Tomorrow I'll get clean. Right? Yeah, just for today. But we can flip that in recovery and say, guess what? Just for today, no matter what, I'm not taking nothing. No matter who dies, no matter how bad I want to use, no matter how bad I want to use, though I don't want to use, but I feel like it, but I can't, right? No matter how many POs, piss tests, and COs I've seen in my life, I don't ever have to use again. I don't ever want to go back there again. I don't ever want to use again. And just for today, I never have to use again. That's what this book tells me, right? It says that in here. Just for today, you never have to use again, right? Just for today, I will find a program, right? Just for today, I will find someone who believes in me. Everybody ain't going to believe in you all the time, but you need to find someone who believes in you, right? And I needed to find someone who believed in me and wanted to help me in my recovery, right? Because everyone ain't going to be there for you all the time. Because everybody's got a disease in here. We all got issues. We're all addicts. There ain't treatment plans in here. There ain't counselors and therapists in here, though there may be, but not in here, right? And we're all we got. Right? We're all we got is one another. So we need to pick each other up instead of pulling each other down sometimes, man. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation and principles before personalities, but it's hard. It's hard when the disease is telling me that I need to talk. You know what I mean? It's hard when my disease is telling me that I got to use today. It's hard when my disease is telling me just for today I'm going to use. I can get clean tomorrow. I got it before. Why can't I get it again? But the reality of this disease in these rooms is that you might not make it back. You know what I mean? Like jails, institutions, and death, right? Death. No more. There is no tomorrow. You know what I mean? And I remember early in my recovery what it was like going to sleep at night, not knowing if I would be clean tomorrow. I remember every night praying at night that I would use tomorrow. I remember that. I remember not knowing, because I didn't understand this thing. I didn't understand, and it talks about in the Another Look pamphlet, right? And I don't got this stuff planned, so it just so happens, I have it here, right? But, it says, I mean, I tell you what it says, but I can't right now. It says, we were never quite sure if our motives were based in a conscious desire to continue using, or a conscious desire to stop using, or an unconscious desire to go back to using, right? And that's how I was when I got here. Like, I was afraid to make any moves at all, because I didn't want to go back. Like, I never wanted to go to jail again, right? Like, I didn't want to do that to my mom again. I didn't want to break her heart anymore, you know? And you guys told me I didn't have to. You guys told me I never had to use again. And if I never had to use again, that meant I never had to go to jail again either. Though I have gone to jail clean. But that was because I had to do the time for that DUI I caught. You know what I mean? And I stayed clean. I went to jail clean. And I faced my responsibilities. And I was accountable for what I did. Because this program taught me that. Like, these are the things that like kept me from success all my life. Right? These are the things like the fear of accountability, the fear of responsibility, that I would never be able to get up every day at 7 o'clock to be at work at 9. Like, I didn't understand that because I never had to do it. Right? I just didn't believe that I was capable of it. So because I didn't believe I was capable of it, there was no way I was capable of it. Right? And that's self-centeredness. If I can't do it, or if I don't believe it, it's not possible. Right? And I need to watch that today. But like, I learned how to use things now to help me now when I'm craving now. I learned that if it's like when I get clean, the first thing I do is stop, right? The very first thing I got to do in order to get clean is not use, right? Then eventually, after I don't use for a period of time, the obsession will be lifted. Like, if you're in here right now and you're obsessing right now, and you want to get out and you're going to go use, or you think you want to use, you don't have to use. Like, it can be lifted. You know what I mean? Find someone, get in their back pocket, and don't leave them until you don't want to use. You know? And they might not welcome you to their house, but someone will. You know what I mean? Especially if you're female, I'm sure. Sometimes I feel like it's a lot easier, but harder for women, too. You know? Because, like, it's easier for a woman to find someone to enable them. You know what I mean? I don't know. I see more homeless guys than I do girls. You know what I mean? Though they are out there. But, like, after the obsession's lifted, the spiritual part. I worked the first 3 steps. I believe the remainder of the steps are to get me away from that self-centered perspective that I have. You know, try to find a better perspective on my life. And when I'm in relapse mode, it works the opposite. The first thing that comes back is the self-centeredness, right? And I start looking at things like the world's against me. Or like, because I'm me, that shouldn't have happened. Or because I'm me, this won't happen. Or because I'm me, or because you know what I mean? And I start to become a victim again, right? And that's the first thing that comes back. And if I entertain that long enough, eventually I'm going to think about using, right? And the obsession is going to come back. And if I entertain that long enough, eventually I'll become powerless again, right? Because I didn't work a program, because I didn't use a power greater than myself, because I didn't practice the programs that were laid out. I mean, it's laid out. There's 12 steps, right? Because you ain't on the 12 step don't mean you can't practice the 12 step, right? It's a just for today program. So that means I need to practice all the steps every day to the best of my ability. That's what I believe, right? That's what got me here. It didn't take me years to go through the steps. Like, I'm like, 6 years and a few months clean, right? And, I've been through the steps. I did 4 steps. I haven't been through the steps 4 times, but I did 4 steps. Like, I've been through the steps 2 times, then I had 2 different sponsors, and that's how I did 4 steps. I'm back on my first step again. But because I'm back on my first step doesn't mean that I stop practicing my 10th step or my 11th step. Because if I wait until I'm on the 11th step to start praying and trying to meditate, I might be assed out. Because this is just for today program. Like, I need prayer in here, you know. And, like, after I pick up, there's no telling what's going to happen, you know. Like, just for today, you never have to use again. And, like, the basic text doesn't talk in absolutes too often. It says most of us, many of us, some of us, sometimes, like if you read it, because it's trying to like include everyone. It's trying to not allow anyone to disqualify themselves, right? But like one of the absolutes that it talks about in here, it's in recovery and relapse. Funny where that's found, right? And it says, we have never seen an addict who lived the Narcotics Anonymous program relapse. We have never, that's a long time, right? Never seen an addict who lives the Narcotics Anonymous program relapse. It doesn't necessarily mean who wrote out all the steps, who wrote books in their 4-step, and their 4-step was 20 books long, and they're really good at writing, and they're getting lost in their writing, and they're not practicing. If it ain't practical, it ain't spiritual, right? We have never seen an addict who lived the Narcotics Anonymous program relapse. Just for today, you never have to use it again. That's all I got. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Please help us improve our ranking so others can find us by putting a review on Stitcher, iTunes, or your favorite podcast index. NAPOD is ad-free thanks to the folks supporting the show with $1 or more per month. If you enjoy listening, you can join them by going to napod.xyz and looking for the donate link. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.